It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew DiCecco. It's like Christmas Day all over again. The draft was here, and now the players are out performing on the field. Yeah. Now, I know. Don't get too hyped up about it. They're just wearing shorts and helmets. But it's still fun to see them out there. The fruits of your labor. The draft is here and gone, and now your draft class gets an opportunity to get out on the field. Andrew DiCecco, I know that a lot of people want to hear about Devonta Smith, and Nick Sirianni said today, as advertised, and that's music to everyone's ears. But we all hope that Devonta Smith is good. But I think one thing that we really didn't hammer home about him is the fact that this guy catches everything, and that's something that Nick Sirianni kind of reminded us about today.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they drafted him to do. I mean, that's why he was selected where he was, and the Eagles were aggressive to, make sure they secured him. He can do it all. He can line up all over formations, catch the football, catch the ball in traffic, which is a underrated quality, especially for a receiver who weighs just about 170 pounds. I think his toughness is a very underrated facet of his skill set. And, I think he's going to become the wide receiver one before, when it's all said and done at the end of August here, and I think he could easily see the highest target share of anyone on the offense.
Yeah, and the other day when he got into town, he had mentioned that he thinks that him and Jalen Reagor can complement each other, with their passing game. He's explosive, very fast. That's what Smith said about Reagor. How do you see those two guys complementing each other with their skill sets?
Yeah, they're totally different players, as you mentioned. Jalen Reagor has the speed, the vertical dimension. I think he's not necessarily going to be a volume type of player, more of a big play, get him the ball in space, whereas I think Devonta Smith's going to be more of a short to intermediate route, someone who's going to command a ton of targets, be a go-to option for Jalen Hurts, be a chain mover, and just a consistent presence in the passing attack. And that's really what that offense needs. He does have a little bit of speed on himself, not to the extent of a Jalen Reagor, of course, but I think he's going to be more of a go-to guy for the season.
Yeah, now, when you look at Devonta Smith, I mean, some people kind of described him somewhat like a Deshaun Jackson, but taller. Is that more because of his build, like how small he is weight-wise? Is he a home run over the top hitter? Like when you kind of envision Smith as a part of an offense, how do you see him?
I mean, the comparison starts and ends with Deshaun Jackson based on their size. I mean, that's the only thing that you can kind of compare them to. They're vastly different players. Deshaun was more of a specialty type player, a home run threat, big play guy that you could just, stretch a team vertically, take the top off of a defense. Whereas I think Devonta Smith's just going to be more of an every down receiver, can do it all, isn't really limited, despite what his weight may say. He can do it all. Now we have to see him do it at the NFL level. I mean, we've reached the overreaction part of the offseason where, you're gonna hear and read a lot of different things based on rookie minicamp and things like that. We really need to see what happens in training camp once the pads come on and in the preseason before you really have an indication of what they're able to do. But it's nice to hear early positive reviews in the early goings.
Yeah, and I think one of the big takeaways from the press conference today was competition. That's another thing that Nick Sirianni is really trying to stress, is that he is, trying to get competition at all levels of the field, everywhere across the board, from rookie camp all the way through. I think competition is something that you're going to, continue to see. They did that with the running back position. They brought in Jordan Howard. They brought in Kerryon Johnson. So I definitely think that competition is going to be a theme for this team.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned that as a core value right off the bat, that was going to be something that he really prided himself on. And under his under his, under this regime. And if you think back to last season, there was a lot of players that already had their jobs essentially etched in stone. There wasn't a whole lot of competition across the board as you have seen in other summers. There wasn't really a lot of camp battles that you could, pinpoint. And I think that's kind of, handing guys a job. I mean, you want competition brings out the best in everyone. You don't just want to hand somebody a job. You want the best man to win, and you're going to see who's hungrier, who wants it more. And that's what training camp has always been about historically. And I think you're kind of going to get back to that, those old camp battles that we remember from, those Lehigh days.
That would be fun. I missed those Lehigh days. I missed those Lehigh days. I went to a Lehigh way back, 1998. I was at Lehigh, and they soon after that they kind of ended the Lehigh. What was that, around Chip Kelly when he got here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lehigh was great, man. I mean, that was that old get out of Philadelphia, get in the dorms, and the players. There was a lot more camp fights. It wasn't what it is today. There's a lot more restrictions now, and back then there was 2-a-days, and it was just Andy Reid ran a really tight camp. So those are some of the fond memories that I always have.
Yeah, and I guess it'll be interesting to see what kind of camp Sirianni runs. I mean, only one day out there, and we haven't really got a chance to see or consume a lot of what he said. He did speak a little while ago, and I mean, obviously. We're to see how he's going to run this team and how what his thumbprint is going to look like on this team. But one thing today was obvious. He is not going to talk about the quarterback rumors. He's not taking the bait on that. And they're going to keep that competition thing going with, hey, Jalen's here. We're happy with what he's, but everybody's here. So even with the quarterback position, it seems like they're not really ready to say he is our clear-cut number one guy. Because you're going to hear names, Andrew, right? You're going to hear Deshaun Watson's name. His name keeps kind of trickling in that the Eagles are still kind of kicking the tires down there. And I wouldn't be surprised if you hear their name attached to an Aaron Rodgers or anybody else. Why? Because they have those 3 draft picks. They're one of the few teams in this league that have the ammunition to get one of these guys.
Yeah, but, the later it gets in the summer and the quarterbacks, they fall behind the learning curve as far as learning the playbook and how much they can really contribute in the early goings. Obviously, when you're looking at someone like Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers, that's not going to be a problem. But, I mean, it's not an easy position to kind of digest, especially kind of getting, if they're going to be moving cities and over the summer and the season only being a couple months away. But, I mean, look, and I've said this countless times, you got to let Jalen Hurts do his thing. Get an extended look at him. You really don't know what you have. You've seen spurts, but you want to see him kind of build off of what you saw last season, build that continuity with his weapons. I mean, we haven't seen Jalen with these new weapons. Let him get accustomed to that first before we're trying to knock this guy down the second string and move turn the page. I don't think that's fair or the right thing to do. And I don't think that's necessarily the direction that they're going to go.
No. I had said the other day, Andrew, and it might have been to you, but the fact that Hurts, to me, it's more than his skill set. It's what he brings to the locker room and what he brings to a huddle and what he brings to a team. The team gravitates to him. That is obvious. That doesn't mean, he's not Tim Tebow where he's got this great ability to lead, but he just didn't have the skill set to play quarterback in this league. He has very good skill sets, but I feel that it's almost his other intangibles that are his best qualities.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and that's one of the things that stuck out to me right away. His poise, his leadership, and his ability to command the huddle. From a young player with no offseason, no preseason, to kind of get thrown in there against the Saints, who had a good defense last year, and really start to move the offense. And there's a lot of chatter going on. He just blocked out the noise. He went out there and executed what they were asking him to do. And I think as a young player, that was very impressive and encouraging. And when you look at now, he's got a full offseason. He's got a new array of weapons to work with. We have no reason to doubt that he won't put it together until he does it. You know what I mean? Give him a year and see what you have. And he does have these intangibles that it gives, it kind of leads you to believe that he can put it all together. And he has a lot of untapped potential. So it'll be interesting to see if Brian Johnson can get that out of him, and the offense can sort of cater around his skill set now. And they've had time to do that, and we're sort of going to see how that all plays out in the coming months.
Yeah, I know these rookie camps, people always want to hear what's going on. Of course, they don't let you guys really get to see all that much out there. But I guess the other guy, after Smith, which of the other guys do you think has the best chance to make a contribution this year?
Of the draft picks or the receivers?
Of the draft picks.
I mean, you would think it would be Zach McPherson by default, but like I was saying, corner is a tough position to transition to at the pro level. And I caution the Eagles not to put too much onto his plate because, just because they have a lack of numbers there doesn't necessarily mean you got to overload this kid, which can lead to a confidence issues or just it can stunt his growth. I've seen it happen to countless players, as I'm sure you have. I think that when you look at the draft class, it would make the most sense to me. The most ideal pick would be Milton Williams, who I think can play. They mentioned that he was going to play defensive end, and he's going to kick inside and rush the passer on passing situations. So, and they really need Milton Williams to kind of catch on fast because there's not much behind Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. And I think when you take a player in the third round anyway, you're expecting early returns. And fortunately, I think that he has the ability to not necessarily have to think and do all these things, but he just rushed the passer, and that's his strongest skill set. And the rest is going to come. He just needs to kind of take this year and develop. But I think playing as the third defensive tackle, ideally, he can sort of get his footing and next year probably take one of those starting jobs.
Now, do you anticipate that any of the draft picks from last year have a bigger contribution than they did as rookies?
Jalen Reagor. Yeah, Jalen Reagor.
That would be helpful, right?
And they certainly need him to, and he's going to be given every opportunity to do so. And I think that when you look at the support system that the Eagles have brought in, there's no reason to believe that he's not going to have a bigger impact. You have the Kevin Patullo, you have a Nick Sirianni, you have a Brian Johnson, you have Aaron Moorhead, who's now had a second year to see what his strengths and weaknesses are, and just take advantage of what he does well. And there's a lot of things that he does do well. And they really were unimaginative in how they got him the football and how they utilized him last year. And that was to his detriment. And I really don't think that we've seen all that Jalen Reagor has to offer. And I think that you're going to see a vastly different player in 2021.
All right. Over at InsideTheBirds.com, you wrote a piece about the many dimensions of Kerryon Johnson. And I'm interested to see,
right.
How you think, we talked about getting him and what it means. Competition is what we really think it means. But what can he add to this offense if he is to make this team?
Yeah, and you said it right there. He needs to make the team first. But, on paper, he's about as good as second running back as you can find across the league. Problem is, obviously, he's got the multiple injuries, which really impacts his elusiveness and his burst and his explosiveness that you saw as a rookie. However, what he does still have, he's very, very strong in pass protection. He has a reliable set of hands out of the backfield, and he's going to pound the rock between the tackles. He's 211 pounds, and I think he would be in a perfect world, he'd be an ideal complement to Miles Sanders. And let's not forget, he doesn't even turn 24, I believe, till the end of June. So that's a young running back tandem if all works out. And I really do think, Mike, that his main competition is going to be Jordan Howard. When you look at Jordan Howard's also good in pass protection. Jordan Howard's also a bigger running back, which will probably looking to fill that type of role. And I think Kerryon Johnson really has a much more diverse skill set and can bring another dimension to the offense that it didn't really have. Because when Miles Sanders was out of commission last season, the lack of a dynamic running back severely impacted the offense. And Boston Scott is who he is. He's a decent player in spurts and in a reduced role. But I think he was miscast and thrust into a role that he wasn't ideally suited for. That's not to say he doesn't have a place on this roster, but I think that ideally Kerryon Johnson would serve that number 2 role.
Hey, I know this is up your alley, Andrew DiCecco. The Eagles brought in 7 undrafted rookie free agents. Any of them that grab headlines for you?
Yeah, I mean, I personally really like Coyote Awashika, the offensive lineman from Buffalo who played right tackle. Probably going to be a guard at this level. I think he can do. I think he can do everything. He was a draftable player, so how he kind of slipped through the cracks is beyond me. But he's got a great opportunity in Philadelphia to kind of latch on to one of those final spots. It's not going to be easy. Obviously, there's a lot of young linemen in the mix there, but he'll have a shot. I mean, Trayvon Grimes. I think he's someone that a lot of people love the name. They like that he's coming from Florida. They like that he's a big body receiver at 6'4", about 220 pounds. Then he can be a red zone guy. But let's give the kid a chance to get on the practice field and see what he can do before penciling him in as the 5 or 6 receiver on the roster. I've seen it happen too many times in the past. People get enamored with the size and the pedigree and the potential, like the Ifeanyi Momas and the Carlton Agudosis. You got to let them. You got to let them sort of grow and develop on the football field before you can make an assessment like that. And obviously, he has potential, but there's a reason why he went undrafted. Let's not forget Brian Johnson is on the staff now. Was with him in Florida. So I mean, we'll see if he can get something out of him this summer. But he's a name, and certainly Jamie Newman. I don't know if Jamie Newman's going to be a rosterable player. He has a long way to go before becoming a reliable quarterback in this league. I think he'd be best suited to be a practice squad quarterback while he develops other aspects of his game. But I mean, there's not a whole lot of competition behind him. I mean, right now I kind of see them going with just Jalen Hurts and Joe Flacco. But we'll see. Maybe Jamie Newman emerges and kind of flashes enough traits where they were a little hesitant to expose him to the waiver wire.
Where'd you have Jamie Newman ranked when he was at Wake Forest before he transferred and then sat out the whole year?
I had him as a draftable player. I saw a lot of flaws in his game still, which is why you kind of really wanted to see him play that season and see if he was able to work some of those things out and have a better assessment. But I mean, I kind of had him as a 6th-round pick this year. He's another player that I thought should have been drafted. So that was a good get by the Eagles.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, DiCecco NFL, football at 4. Eagles rookie camp continues all weekend long. We'll have more on that throughout the day here. Jeff Kerr will join me tonight at 5:25. We'll talk more Eagles and NFL. Of course, football at 4. We'll do a lot of NFL through the summertime here. And, of course, the Eagles camps, mini camps, all that stuff are on the way. They'll be here before we know it. And Andrew and the Inside the Birds guys, all a part of it here on Football at 4. All right, Andrew, happy hour Friday. What are you drinking?
I think I'm going to go with the no filter, the New England IPA from Thomas Hooker.
I like the fact that he had that ready to go, teed up, ready to answer. He was ready for happy hour Friday, like all of us here on the Sports Bash. He appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thanks, Andrew.
You bet, Mike. Have a good weekend.
And he gave us a good answer, by the way. He had it ready to go. I didn't tee him up for that. He just said, I'm going with the no filter.